Hello everyone. Today we will be continuing the read on Bendy, the Lost Ones. And, well, we'll have a really good, at least I believe, really good surprise at the end of this video. So, just sit back, enjoy the reading, and, well, hopefully you guys enjoy the book. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, really anything, just let me know down in the comments. Now, let's get into the book. Chapter 40. Bill. All of it was my fault. This wasn't some deep inner demon lying to me, trying to keep me here, paralyzed, unable to move, to breathe. This was the complete truth. If I hadn't offered to work for Jet, if I hadn't brought Constance down here, if Brent had seen us and followed, none of this would have happened. The inner monster would have stayed locked up, Mr. Connor and Joey Drew and whoever else worked for them would have fixed the machine and taken it away. It would have been like it never existed. All of us could have continued our lives and been quite happy. As the ink sprayed out of the machine and started to pool around us, I wonder if I should just drown. If it would be best if I allowed the ink to take over my body and to explode like Brant had. I'm sorry, Bill. If I can't control it, why should I expect you to? Constance's mournful apology echoed around me, like she wasn't really there, like a spirit talking to me. Please, Bill, you need to help us. What help can I be? I fix things. What a joke. I destroy things, just like my father. I pretend to be something grander than I am. Bill, come on, buck up. It was Brant now, echoing in my ear. They were here, they were next to me, but they felt so far away. I can't. It's a lie. I can't fix anything. I destroy everything. I could feel Constance right next to me, but I couldn't look up at her. I just stared at the ink pooling, reaching out, searching for us. But that's the good news, said Constance. We need you to destroy the machine. I sat up with that information. I sat with that information. I realized it was the truth. I finally looked up. Constance was covered in black specks of ink. Brant was holding his side. It was time to do this. I slowly stood up. I could feel my whole body go numb. I couldn't tell if it was supporting my own weight or not, but I was upright. Your tools, sir, said Brant with a fancy accent, like he was my butler. I wanted to explain that that's not how butlers sound, but that's not the point. He was trying to make me laugh. I made my way over to the other side of the machine, carefully avoiding stepping in the puddle of ink that reached out to me as I passed. I made it to the side panel I helped Mr. Connor with. I sat down, and I wrenched it off. It was a nice feeling not having to worry about being delicate and careful. Destroying things took a lot less effort than fixing them. Can we do anything? Asked Constance, crouching next to me. Keep a lookout, I replied, for Mr. Connor and Joey. And the monster, added Brant. I hadn't wanted to say that part out loud. I was left alone then. The world was only this small square foot in front of me. I took my wrench and I just looked around inside for any bolts I could undo or even just loosen. It was dark inside the machine, harder to see last time, so I turned on my flashlight. Bill, you have to hurry, said Constance, standing by the secret entrance. I know, I said. No, it's not like that. The shadows, they're back. I looked up. The room was getting darker. The fear rose up to my fingertips. My hands were shaking again. Droplets of sweat appeared on my brow. Focus, Bill, focus. If I just undid all the work inside, if I could remove that lever. I worked as fast as I could, but even with my bright flashlight, I could feel the shadows creeping in. Suddenly, the lever was loose in my hand. I pulled it from the machine and placed it next to me. Next, I grabbed the gears behind it. Soon enough, I had a small pile of machine guts on the floor beside me. I grabbed them and shoved them into my toolkit. Then I stared into the bowels of the beast. Was that good enough? It didn't feel good enough. It definitely wasn't good enough. I felt this surging fear, this need to eviscerate the whole machine, to turn it inside out. My flashlight glinted on something. I looked close, almost stuck my head inside the machine. A shining chrome tube heading up into the bowels of the beast. It was small, but significant. Made of a different metal than the rest of the machine, it had to be important. Picked up my wrench and started at the fitting where it started to bend upward. Then there was a sudden roar that nearly stopped my heart. It was nothing like a lion or a bear. It was almost like a scream. A high-pitched scream with a low rumble underneath it. It chilled you to the bone. I looked up. The room was pitch black. I couldn't see Constance or Brant, just the beams from their flashlights. "Where is it?" I asked, my body paralyzed once more. I didn't have the strength to fight the terror inside me anymore. The beams from the flashlight raced across the room searching. "Find it!" I ordered. I returned to the pipe. My hands were shaking so much I couldn't hold the wrench in just one. I dropped my flashlight, what was the point anyway, and with my two hands twisted down hard. There was another loud roar, this time just above me. I looked up and grabbed for my flashlight, swinging it away from the machine and upward. I screamed. My beam landed on a wide, toothy grin. Sharp teeth loomed above me, just like a cashier's cat's smile, just floating there. But I knew there had to be a body. I knew the monster had claws. It looked at me, or at least seemed to. I was paralyzed. I couldn't run. I couldn't turn off the flashlight. "Bill, get out of there!" I heard Brant call out. Yes, get out of there. Get out of here, there. Get out of there, Bill. What about the pipe? My right hand still had the wrench tight inside the machine, but I couldn't look away. The mouth seemed to grow wider, and it opened, revealing the sharpness of its teeth. Something strange happened. All the fear, everything, it was gone. I felt this lightness, this feeling of acceptance. I looked down and saw the ink pooling around me. I saw it climb up my legs, pulling itself onto me. I suddenly understood the phrase, foregone conclusion. I turned the machine, my hand as steady as a rock, and pulled as hard at the wrench at the pipe fitting. I felt an explosion of ink cover my hand as the chrome pipe fell. I caught it deftly. I tossed it out of the machine with its other guts. I looked up the monster once more. I win. "Bill!" called out Constance, and then Brant. "Constance, no!" "Constance, it's okay. It's really okay." I stared at the beast's wide open mouth. What the hell? The light glinted off the monster's glistening ink body. Thin, just like a shadow. All my life I've been afraid of what my future might be, but here it was, staring me in the face. As the ink rose up to my torso, I felt warm. I felt at ease. I looked up at the creature, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. Chapter 41. Brant. I held Constance, flailing in my arms. I could barely hold her back. She was strong and determined. She had rage on her side, and anger at me for preventing her from helping poor Bill. But I had my shame, my inky shame, and it made me hold her tight, because if we couldn't save Bill, then at least I was going to save us. He was just sitting there. He could have run, he could have fought back, but he just sat there. We watched as the ink grew up his body, up his neck. He sat there smiling like a darned fool. Just smiling. The beast smiling back at him. Then the beast's mouth opened wide, so wide, dislodging its jaw, teeth glinting in the light. Constance stopped struggling in my arms. We both just stared and watched. As Bill smiled, the ink crawled up and over his head just as the beast lunged down at him. "No!" cried out Constance, but I was speechless. For sure. For once, I had nothing to say. How was this happening? The inky figure exploded as the beast enveloped him. "You monster!" screamed Constance, and she turned to me. "Let me go, Brant!" It was an order, but I couldn't do it. I didn't know what she was going to do when free anyway. "He's not dead," I reminded her. I recalled my own experience, the swirling and bright lights. He would be searching for us, for help. If he didn't give in to the pull of the blackness, it was a powerful pull, but maybe he could resist. I know what it's like, and you can bring him back, just like you did for me. That seemed to calm her down. "I can make some more of the antidote," she said, piecing together what I had said in her own mind. Exactly. The monster roared suddenly, and we turned back. I held Constance tight, not really to protect her, but just out of primal personal fear. We watched, frozen, as it seemed to notice the open door to the tunnels. It slowly stalked its way towards it, stared for a moment, and then disappeared through it. "Oh no," said Constance. "No, we have to stop it." I let her go and said, "Yes, I do." She looked at me in complete disbelief. "Don't be a hero. I can help." "Of course you can, but you need to escape. You need to make the antidote. So let me show this knucklehead who's boss." I said with a smile. I wasn't feeling as nearly confident as I was pretending to be. I had no idea how to fight a monster, but I felt I understood better than she ever could. I knew at least what it would be to be a dripping, inhumane creature. I walked slowly towards the door, the pool of ink where Bill had been. The light in the room was coming back on now that the monster was gone. I stood over his toolbox and saw the pipe wrench lying in there. I picked it up. The ink climbed over my fingers. Constance came up to my side. "I'll take his bag. Let's put the pieces of the machine inside. I'd get rid of them," she said. We bent over together and put everything back in the bag. Something sharp prickled my finger. "Ow," I said. "Are you okay?" asked Constance. "I'm okay." Once again, I felt deep embarrassment. It was just a cut. I wasn't being eaten alive. "Say, so we have a plan," I said as we stood up and Constance held the bag close to her body. Constance nodded. No matter what happens, you'll have to keep going. You hear me?" I asked. I had to get through the reasonable part of her, past her ink-fueled rage. "I hear you." We walked slowly to the tunnel, her holding the bag with her fire poker all in one hand. Me with a pipe wrench. We shone our lights down the tunnel. They glowed bright, and we knew that meant the monster was far ahead of us somewhere. We didn't say anything to each other. Our plan was simple and stupid. I glanced down at the pipe wrench in my hand. Would this thing be enough against an ink monster? Probably not. I laughed at myself. It was all so absurd. I noticed something then. I held my hand so I could see it better, pretending I was examining the wrench even closer. I laughed again. Of course. Constance looked at me. "What?" she said. "This whole thing is pretty funny when you think about it," I replied. I couldn't tell her the truth. My little cut was bleeding, which wasn't a really big deal, except the blood was black, and I had a pretty good feeling it wasn't blood at all. "No, it's not," she replied. "Let's go," I said, lowering the wrench, and we walked slowly into the dark tunnel. We stepped back into the darkness. We were hunters tracking a beast. Never would I have imagined I'd end up here. After all of this, a pretty swell story. Not that I would ever get the chance to write it. We were so quiet, both of us. We were listening and looking. The darkness was empty in front of us, for now. If anything happens, you have to run. You can't fight. Got it? I whispered, reminding her. I knew that her anger wanted to definitely do the opposite, but she couldn't. "I know," she said. She sounded obviously annoyed with me, and instantly I wanted to apologize. But this wasn't the time or the place. "You run without me. I need to get it back into the room and trap it in there. If I can't, I stopped. The idea kind of scared me. "Kill it?" she said, finishing the sentence. Guess the idea didn't scare her as much. She had moxie. This dame. That's for sure. Maybe she should have been the one to take on the beast. I didn't know how much time I had left. I could feel it inside me. I could feel the ink in my veins. Should I tell her the truth? That the antidote was only a short-term solution? "The light's getting dim," whispered Constance. I hadn't noticed, but I saw it now. Our flashlights didn't seem to fill the tunnel with quite as much light. I sucked in my breath slowly. "Are you ready?" I asked. The light dimmed further. There's a branch in the tunnel right there. You see it? There was a dark hole in the wall. It was our best possible escape. These tunnels all had to lead somewhere. "I see it." "Good." The light dimmed again. Here we go. This was madness. But weren't we all mad here? "If anything happens," I said. "No more apologies," she said in the curt way of hers. "Well, just wanted to say it was gosh darn swell getting to know you." There was a pause, and then she said, "You too." She didn't know how I was feeling. She thought we'd make it, that we'd both make it. She didn't know that this was it, that this was goodbye forever, that was for the best. I didn't like goodbyes much personally. They never felt satisfying. They never quite did the job. The light went out. It's here. There was a sudden roar, and the monster was on my back, pushing me to the ground. I could feel its strange wet skin, its claws ripping at my shirt. The ink in my veins seemed to pulse and rush through my body faster. I gasped as I landed hard, but I was able to cry out into the darkness, "Constance, run!" I struggled on the ground and finally was able to twist my body and swing the pipe wrench and hit the monster right in the face. It howled and stared at me, barely even flinching, and pulling back almost in confusion, giving me a moment to spring upright, blocking the tunnel's exit. I swung at it again, and it staggered backwards, tilted its head slightly, almost like it was surprised. This was good. This was very good. Glanced around. Constance was nowhere to be seen. That was good. She was off. She was safe. Someone had to make it out of here. And she was pretty swell someone. I struck it across the face, and it flew up against the wall of the tunnel. I noticed that in a small moment that one of the creature's hands was smaller than the other. Interesting. Pushed myself off the wall and came as the monster swinging. "Come on, you!" I shouted, flailing wildly. Every inch of my body screamed out in pain. Not just my ribs, but my insides. They all just wanted to burst through my body, burst out like a bubble. I felt like I was holding onto my skin like a hat that wanted to blow away in a storm, but I couldn't give in. The monster seemed to know something was going on inside me. It lunged and fought back, but it didn't bite. It didn't claw. I fell again onto the cold stone ground. It stood above me and roared so loudly I thought my eardrums would burst. There was no way I could defeat this beast in a fight, but there was one thing I could do. I swung upward with all my strength. The pipe wrench hit its mark a few times, causing the creature to howl and slink backwards, and stop again for a moment, stand upright, staring down at me. Once again it seemed confused, wondering why I would tap it gently with this small metal thing. But it was enough of a pause for me to pull myself up and make my way through the beast's legs and start running. "Come on, follow me, you inky devil!" I heard it behind me, coming for me. Good. I just had to make sure to get back to the machine room. I just had to get it there. Then I could let go. I could just let go. I'm guessing chapter 43. Constant. Apologies. I ran. That is a confusing sentence. I ran. I ran fueled by rage and fear. No, I told myself, not fear. Nerves, like Lily called them. Make it positive. I turned down the tunnel. I had no idea where it led to. All I knew was it led away from the monster. All I knew was it led away from the monster. But it also led away from Bram. This was so unfair. He was in danger again. He was putting his life on the line again so soon. After I'd brought him back, I was the one fueled the most by the situation. I was the one who ought to be fighting the beast. My stomach lurched as if it was trying to pull me back towards him. But it was too late, before I lost him again. I shook my head to get rid of those thoughts. Even if the worst happened, I could save him. I had the antidote. I'd saved Bill. I'd saved everyone. It was incredibly difficult to run with any speed, holding this bag full of tools and bits of machine, as well as the poker and the flashlight. I hobbled along feeling ridiculous and annoyed that I couldn't just sprint. But what could I get rid of? Certainly not the flashlight, nor the poker. And the whole point was for me to dispose of the bag. I couldn't just leave it in the tunnel for any jet people or this Joey Drew fellow. Joey Drew cartoons. That's what this was like. I was running in a cartoon. The walls of the tunnel passed me by all the same. Never ending, carrying an absurd number of props with me. How was this real life? I skidded to a sudden stop at a fork. There was no conveyor belt to tell me which way to go. I looked left, then right, then just stared straight ahead. No, I wouldn't be intimidated by this choice. I would use logic to get there. I took a step to my right. There was nothing to see but more tunnel. I could feel a knot form in my stomach, so I closed my eyes and listened. I strained to hear something. I didn't know what, but maybe there was something. I smelled something too. Though all I could smell was a strange, tangy ink, I could feel the drops moving across my skin, trying to find some way to take me over. But I wouldn't let them. Then I opened my eyes and stepped to the left. I strained again to hear something. Anything. Waves. Did I hear water lapping? Did I smell salt in the air? I wasn't some hound dog. I couldn't tell these things for sure, but my mind was desperate, so maybe it was all just in my head. It was enough for me to choose the left side. I started running again. Didn't feel tired, even though my muscles ached. I felt grateful for my rage. It spurred on me. It made me want to get out of there. And most importantly, it made me confident that I was right in all of my decisions. I knew this was probably problematic in the real world, but in this strange underground world, I felt like Alice from the book. This wasn't reality, it was a wonderland. I was falling down a hole, except I was running along it, and the hole was sideways. We're all mad here. I heard waves now. I heard them properly. Not just maybe. Picked up speed, holding the bag tightly to my chest. I ran towards the sound, and then the smell of air and salt in the outside world. I'm coming! I called out as I raced forward. I was almost there. I could feel it. I could feel it against my face, my skin. I was almost there. Something yanked me hard from behind. My head snapped in a whiplash, and I fell hard on my back, dropping everything in my hands. The flashlight rolled, shining now from behind me. I sat for a moment in pure shock that quickly turned into rage. I reached for the poker that was just too far away for me to grab. I saw a shadow along the wall. A creature? The monster? No, it seemed to have two long ears, like a rabbit, or possibly some kind of dog, but it was tall and human-sized, and fleeting. The shadow vanished down the hall. It left me. It had attacked me, and then left me. I didn't understand. I turned to look at the mess around me. I watched as the poker rolled away from me a few inches, and suddenly vanished. I heard the waves louder now. Quickly, I reached for my flashlight and shone it ahead of me. I stayed on the ground, crawling slowly forward. The sound of the waves came rushing back, and I was very aware of my surroundings suddenly. It wasn't a dream. I was in a tunnel built by the bootleggers in the 1920s. It was all very real. I crawled forward and then saw the edge. The ground just ended, stopped without any warning. Impossible to see in the dark. I lay on my stomach now and snaked forward, the rough ground scratching through my shirt to my skin. I reached out and curled my fingers over the side with my right hand and pulled myself. Slowly but surely I came to the edge and looked over. There was water below, rushing and crashing into a cavern. It was maybe 30 feet below, with rocks protruding. I scanned with my flashlight over it all and wondered why this place existed. What possibly could its purpose be? Then it occurred to me. High tide. I showed my light into the dark void to my left. There wasn't more cavern. That was the sea. That was the outside world. They could ship out the whiskey from here, load the boats up. I wonder if they got the machine here in the first place. I wonder if that's how they got the machine here in the first place. Was this the way out? Did I simply wait? I always had patience in the past. My whole life, I had to wait for things. I had to wait on people. Wait for moments to finally be with their own thoughts. But now I thought I had to run away, run out of it. How on earth was I meant to harness a power that I resented so thoroughly now? I itched at the thought. I looked over my shoulder into the darkness. That long-eared thing that had saved me from going over the edge. And it attacked me. It had wanted to help me. What other creatures were in the dark? Were they all shadows attached to the machine, drawn to it like a magnet? Or did they live inside it only to be released when we opened the icebox? Or when I pierced the pipe? Or at some other point we hadn't connected yet to everything? Was there a science that could explain it all? No, there wasn't. And who cared? This was the dangerous and careless. This again was a certain group of people making decisions with no care for the rest of us. I picked up the tool bag and stood slowly. I felt a renewed confidence and stood on the edge, my toes just over the water far below. I held the bag in my arms, and then I took in a deep breath. I harnessed all the rage I had inside me and flung it into the churning water below. As I watched it fall into the waves and disappear instantly, I felt a weight lifted. That, at least, had been done. Now I had to do the other thing. I had to escape. "Help me!" a voice shouted in my ear. I was once again grabbed from behind, and this time yanked around to find myself face to face with a man with crazed eyes. He was soaked in ink, but I could still see he was in coveralls with the word "Gent" sewn into it. The name Scott was there too, underneath the inky marks partially obscuring it. He wasn't an inky creature, he was human, but he seemed more animal than anything. "Help me! It's after me! You have to help me!" He stared at me with wild eyes and then looked over his shoulder and back again. My scientist brain took over and managed to keep me calm, even holding my anger at bay despite my desire to fling his hands off of me. I told myself his behavior was likely the ink's effect on him, targeted his paranoia. "I'll try. Do you know the way out?" I asked, trying to control my temper. How could I possibly help him when I couldn't help myself? "There's no way out," he replied, shaking his head. He repeated it again and again. "There is, though. There is a way through the bar. There are other tunnels," I said, trying to prick a memory of his. He had clearly lost his mind being down here with the monster for who knows how long. He kept shaking his head. No, you can't help. No one can help. It will kill us all." He sank to the ground. He reminded me how Bill, sitting there, just staring at the beast, not fighting back. It made me so angry. I turned to the water. I walked to the edge once more and looked down with my flashlight. The rocks were jagged, but there was some empty space. Right below, a small pool's worth. Like a small pool to dive into on a horse. It was easier to dive into the water without a horse, I told myself. Much easier. I turned back to Scott. "We should dive, I think," I said. "I think we should make it." He sat on the edge of the light, shook his head. No. "Come with me," I said. I wanted to sound kind and soft, but it came out as a gruff order. He slowly crawled away from my outstretched hand, shaking his head, until the darkness enveloped him. I stared into the darkness, listening to the sound of an echoing no, as he retreated back down the tunnel. Until it was gone, all I heard was the waves crashing below. Suddenly, a giant screaming roar of agony rumbled through the tunnel, vibrating my very bones. The monster, had Brant killed it? Was that the sound I'd heard? I remembered my task. Part 1 was done. I'd gotten rid of the machine parts. Part 2, get home to make the antidote. Time to get that job done. I turned and faced the churning water below. I shut the flashlight down and examined the small area that seemed to be safe. Straight down. That's all. It wasn't far. The water churned. I stared down at it. I closed my eyes. Keep your head down, Constance. Do the job. Get it done. Chapter... I don't know. I think 43 or 44. Brant. I had managed to get it to stalk me to the entrance, and was as exhausted as our cat and mouse game. Any adrenaline pumping through me, hiding any pain I was feeling, it decided to unveil its special dessert. Wait, what? Any adrenaline pumping through me, hiding any pain I was feeling, had decided to unveil it like a special surprise dessert at a fancy restaurant. Ta-da! And it was unbearable. I swung at the monster and it grabbed the pipe wrench with its hand. It was fed up with my little toy. I could tell I did not have the strength to yank it from it. Instead, it flew up and out of my hand, hitting me under the chin, knocking my teeth together hard. I fell backward onto my back, hitting my head with a dull thud. I lay there, trying to catch my breath and reaching up to my mouth. I could taste blood, but it wasn't salty. It was different. It was familiar. I withdrew my hand and looked at it. Sure enough, it was black ink. I was oozing from the inside out. My ears buzzed. I was so close yet so far. I felt entirely ashamed. I had one thing to do. Just one. I was brought back for one night to do it. One night only, I laughed. I was feeling that strange drunk feeling again. Light-headed and silly. For one night only. Brant Morris versus the Monster of Ink. Tonight at the Top Hat Club. Top Hat Nightclub. I said out loud, and I laughed once more. Then I closed my eyes. I felt that pull. I could see the swirling black. I wanted to give in and melt away. I wanted to seep into the cracks of myself. The feelings were so familiar now. I had been through this once. No, not yet. I had to get up. I had to finish this. I opened my eyes again. Looming over me was the monster. It was so close to me that I could feel its stinking breath on my face. I could see right into its mouth, past its sharp scissors-like teeth, and into the blackness. I didn't know what it was doing, but I stayed completely still. I didn't want to move an inch. Slowly it pulled away from me, standing at its full height. My fingers carefully felt around the ground for the wrench. I touched something metal. It was a little too far for me to grasp, The monster opened his mouth wide, its jaw distended, teeth sharp. He let out a piercing roar. The sound made your blood run cold. I was trying to grab at the edges of the wrench. I glanced over at it, and with all the will in my body, I lunged for it, just as the beast lunged down at me, and a dark figure launched at it. Flying over me like Superman was a figure out of nowhere. It tackled the monster by its legs, and the monster teetered, slightly unsteady. The figure rolled out of sight, and the monster turned, engaging with it. It let out a massive roar. I then watched the figure rise and race into the machine room, the monster hot on its tail. I sprung to my feet, adrenaline coursing through my body for one last hurrah. I stood and grabbed the door, ready to slam it shut on the monster, when I saw the figure, inky black, dripping like a form of a person with no features. It stood and turned to me a moment. I swear it was looking at me. Then I thought, was that me? Was that what I was? What I was to be again? It was like looking in a mirror and a time machine all at the same time. I didn't want to close the door anymore. I wanted to help it, fight the monster alongside it. Then it gave me a nod. A nod. It was so human, it's like it knew me. Recognized me. Bill? I asked. The figure turned back to the monster and lunged at it again. It was futile. The monster was huge, but it was enough of a distraction I managed to slam the door shut and lock it, heart thudding in my chest. I stood in the dark tunnel. I felt completely spent. Over. Done. I turned my back to the door and slid down it. There, I had done it. No, we'd done it. Thank you, Bill. I wonder if when I returned to the inky form, I'd be able to communicate with him again. Were there others? Were there folks in New York who had come to a similar fate? What had done our best to prevent it happening again? But had it already happened? Was it too late? If there were others, I thought as I closed my eyes, at least we wouldn't be alone. At least we wouldn't be in the wilderness together. We could be lost in the wilderness together. Constance, I hope you made it. It was time. My body knew it, my mind knew it, my heart knew it. Time to be invisible. Time to let go. Constance. I took a moment to just lie there, to look up at the stars and shiver in the cold, to breathe. Then I sat and I bolt upright, stared at the ocean, dark and foreboding. I didn't have time to gather my thoughts. I had to get back to my apartment, to my home. I had to make the antidote. I had to save everyone. I stared along the thin strip of beach I had landed on. I couldn't quite say I swam here. The current had taken me. The waves had pulled me back, and I fought my way out of the cavern and into the wide, never-ending ocean. And if I eventually wound up here, on a shallow, rocky beach that sat next to the highway just up the brown, grassy hill. No cars had come by. I was so very alone. I stood up, shivering. I didn't know if it was the cold or the shock or the fear. It was probably all of it. I buried deep within myself and found my rage waiting patiently for me. I released it into the wild and I screamed. Screamed so loudly that I thought my voice would carry over the waves forever. Then I stopped and bent over, hands on thighs, panting. Enough. It was time to go. I marched up the hill and stared my long walk along the road. I hoped for a vehicle to come by. I hoped for some kind of help. I walked and walked. No lights, no houses. Just a girl alone in the dark, walking. Her wet trousers and shirt frozen in the cold air. Her hair was just long icicles. Just get home, no matter how long it takes. Even if you freeze to death. But hopefully before that happens. The night was long and so dark. The sun would never rise again. All was cold and endless. I was despairing. I was angry at the world for everything. For the machine. For the ink. For all of it. At least we stopped it. At least we fought back. Bill! Brant. Was Brant alive anymore? Had he been consumed? I feared the latter. How could it not be? Even if I could make the antidote, how would I ever find them again? Would they still be trapped below that ground, or would they find me? Like how Brant did before. Yes, I would wait for them. I would wait for them to find me, and when they did, I would be ready. I would devote the rest of my life, if I had to bring them back. There was a light, a brightness behind me. It lit up the dark road in front of me. I turned and saw the brightness. I turned and all I saw was brightness. I shielded my eyes. A car. It slowed. I took a step to the side, wary. I'd hitchhiked before, but it had always been a risk. You never know. The car seemed fancy, and the passenger side window rolled down. A pleasant enough looking man stared at me for a moment. Are you alright? He asked, looking concerned. Just cold. Well, do you want a ride? He asked. I'm going to Atlantic City, I said. So are we. Hop on in. I was so cold and so tired, I laughed then to myself. I thought of the danger I'd just been in, the life or death of it. If I could face that, I could face anything. I opened the door and slipped inside, closing the door behind me. It was warm. I also wasn't alone. There's no escape, said Scott from Gent, staring at me, wide-eyed. You can never escape. I stared at him. Oh, don't mind him. He's harmless, said the man in the passenger seat. He turned around and looked at me. He extended a hand and looked towards me. I'm Joey, he said. I stared. No escape, said Scott. No. The car sped off. The machine. Swirling blackness wrapped so tightly. At first like a hug, and then it squeezes. It crushes. It smothers. It feels like fire, but also cold. It burns. Cold can burn. A quiet buzz, then louder, like 1,000 voices talking at once, screaming at once, outside and inside. Our thoughts are not our thoughts. Whose thoughts are these? How many of us are there? How many will join us? We are all screaming. We are all waiting. We are all lost. The light appearing in sudden bursts, too bright. It pierces at you, tears you apart even as you reach out for it. What is there to reach for? Why hurt yourself? Just sink back. Sink back in with your friends. Fear, Bill, shame, Brant, anger, Constance. We sink back, and back. We understand now. We see how all this time we were wrong. We understand the joke now. Knock, knock. Who's there? We can't fix the machine. We never could. Knock, knock. Who's there? Whose is there? Out there. Out here. We're all here. We understand now. It's a punchline to the joke. You can't fix what's not broken. Oh, wow. That's the book. Really? They ended it off with her getting in the car with Scott and Joey. Okay, I'm going to read the acknowledgements, but I am confused. Acknowledgements. I want to thank my agent, Jess Regal, and my editor, Laura Wiezok, along with everyone else at AFK Scholastic, for the amazing help and support with this book. I also have to thank my parents who have always been there for me. Go Team Cress. My guys, my husband, Scott, and my cat, Chris, for being awesome. And of course, the Meatly and Book Pass for allowing me to play in their world in the first place. I will always be grateful for the opportunities you have given me. Lastly, but certainly not leastly, to all the Bendy fans who have been utterly amazing. I absolutely could not do this without you. Well, everyone, that is the book. That is Bendy the Lost Ones. That was crazy. So, now, let's have our outro. Yeah, I know. Here's a mess, but hey, I enjoyed reading this book. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. If not, I'll probably choose a book probably in a couple days to start reading. But I hope you guys have a great day, and hopefully I don't get too much judged for this. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.